Okay, now that we are here, this one is going to be slightly informal. And well, if you guys want to laugh, want to clap, you can go ahead. And I'm certain, I mean, there are people on this panel. I've been having a tough time controlling Abhijit Ayar Mitra, who you must have been seeing on YouTube and on TV regularly. And he is famous, let's put it this way. And he has been wanting to do his dance of peace. Well, we'll see about that. Okay. And because he seriously believes that wherever he dances, peace always follows, and he was not allowed to dance, I think, only in Syria. But anyway, even Sadiq is a nicely face. No, you're not a dancer. Okay, fine. The thing is, you see, guys, I just want to give a little background. Manjari had gone to Israel in 2023, and the rest of, I mean, as part of an AJC delegation, and Sandeep, me, Abhijit, we were there in Israel last year, sometime in September. As it happened, we went to the October 7th Hamas attack areas, you know, the kibbutz in Be'eri and all. We saw what all had happened over there. We saw the people over there. We talked to, you know, one of the first responders, and it was quite horrific. And after that, of course, we also faced some kind of a missile attack, I think, from the Hezbollah. Yeah, it was not. Okay. And here I must say, I think Abhijit has been in Israel how many times? 14, 15. And Arjun? 17 times. 17 times. So, you know, these are the people who really know what is going on. Now, the question to Arjun, the first of all. Arjun, tell me, you have been handling agency and you've been into Jewish advocacy for such a long time. My question to you is that why is there such a perception, you know, there's a mismatch in terms of perception about Israel and the reality. I mean, why is it that we constantly see a demonization of Israel internationally to the extent that to say anything positive about Israel and you are construed as anti-Palestinian, you are construed as anti-peace, you are seen as a lot of things which should not be the case. So tell us a little bit about that.
Thank you, Shweta. This is actually a very critical question and that you have asked. Now, the problem has been a question of numbers is one of the primary things. There are just, as our speakers have mentioned earlier, many of them, Israel is a population of 10.5 million, but out of which, not all are Jews. Jews are about 8.5 million. And a global population of about 16.5 million. Now, why does that number, what is interesting about that number is till today, this is 2025, the numbers have not come back to what they were before the Holocaust, when it was 18 million. Numbers haven't come back as yet. You can see the devastation of the Holocaust. Now, with numbers like that, look at the versus the people who are anti-Semitic around the world. I'm not getting into which people specifically, we all know. Now, that's one side of it. The other side of it is there is a misunderstanding that post-Holocaust, post-Second World War in the world, mostly Europe and America, there has been an increase in anti-Semitism. No, that's not correct. The anti-Semitism has always remained the same, right from the beginning. Beginning means when the Jews were in diaspora in Europe, America came later. After Second World War, thanks to the Holocaust, is when the numbers dipped a little bit, where people were a little, you know, like little shameful that, oh God, this kind of thing happened and all that. But now it's back to normal. It's not an increase, it's back to normal. And the fear of whether it was in the Middle Ages or whether it was in the diaspora, wherever it was, look, I mean, without getting into specific, and again, not trying to blame any specific area or community or something like that, there is a tendency in the world to always find someone to blame, the other, so to say, whoever it is, in whichever country it is. It's unfortunately a problem we have also. But here, with somebody to blame, which means at a time in the Middle Ages, etc., when there were plagues and there were wars, there was pestilence, etc., who do you blame? You can't blame yourself, technically, so you blame the Jews. So whatever it was, and there was no other religion at that time there, in Europe, etc., there were Jews or there were Christians. So blame the Jews for everything. So that has continued, it's become more sophisticated now, but it has continued. So first, of course, where the church used to, until it officially absorbed the Jews of killing of a god in 1964. Believe it or not, there was this thing called the Second Vatican. There was an event called the Second Vatican in 1964-65, where the Catholic Church officially absorbed the Jews of the killing of their god. Till then, it was official policy that blamed the Jews for killing of Jews. So that when it continues for 2,000 years, the Jews become the favorite target. And look at the numbers, I told you about the numbers. And it's not that the numbers were great earlier. They're down to 18 million in the world, not just in Europe, before the Second World War and the Holocaust. So coming back to that factor, where does the narrative come in, where is the failure, is when you have such a small number, nobody's heard of them. How many in India, for example, let's say, of course, you know the Jews, but how many have heard of let's say, the Kurds, in that sense, in terms of popular understanding, or the Yazidis? The numbers, they're not big enough to draw attention.
Manjari, I have a question about the BDS movement. Now, boycott, divestment, sanctions movement, it's a pro-Palestinian movement which is actively working against Israel. Now, would you say movements like this are an attempt to delegitimize Israel as a nation and even Jewish people as a race?
Absolutely. I mean, at the start of it, in 2005, when this BDS movement was started, it was the time when, and by the way, it is a propaganda of the Palestinian Agency Society was involved in this, the NGO. So what they did was they came up with this idea that we are going to boycott, we are going to divestment and sanction Israel, and we will run this propaganda everywhere. Now the problem was that earlier it was an anti-Israel kind of a movement. But later on, it was found out that it was not just about what Israel was doing against the Palestinians, that was the idea, but the idea was that Israel as a country should not exist. So it was an existential threat to the country of Israel. So when that happened, it was then when the Americans, when the Germans, when the Spanish people, they all recognized that this is going in some other direction. It is not just anti-Israel, it is anti-existence of Israel. So that was the time when they wanted to kind of abort this mission and kind of, I mean, it was abolished in most of the Western countries in the region. So of course, it started off, I mean, the narrative when it started was that it is going to be an anti-Israeli movement, but it turned out to be something else. So that was what BDS movement was all about.
Abhijit, on the very uncomfortable question of Gaza and the Palestinians, what exactly do you think is going on over there? This whole accusation that is coming towards Israel about, Israelis are starving Gazans. Even the UN Secretary General has talked about it. France is talking about it. Everyone is talking about it. What exactly is going on in Gaza? What is your information? And how legitimate are such claims?
Now, if any of you need to ask questions at the end of this, no matter how hostile, feel free to ask, all right? Where gali bhi dena hai, to gali do, no problem. Would you prefer if I speak in Hindi or in English? Hindi हाथ ऊपर करो, English. Hindi हाथ ऊपर करो. नहीं, ठीक है. So English is fine. Okay. Now, see, I think I'm the only one in the room, other than being to Israel, I've also been to Gaza in 2011 as part of a delegation. Oh, you've been? Achha, okay. Now, what happened, I'll tell you what I saw in Gaza. First was absolute fear. You can't have a conversation out there without somebody looking over their shoulder कि कौन माइंडर आ रहा है मेरे साथ बात करने के लिए. The last time I saw this was when I went to North Korea. Because in North Korea also people are scared that the official government minder is going to do something to you if you say something wrong. The second thing that I saw out there was everything there is controlled by Hamas. All the distribution system, everything, you have to be in their good books. And you will get whatever you want. There was no shortage. Do you know, there are parts of Delhi that are more deprived and infinitely filthier than any part of Gaza I have ever been to. There is full public sanitation. There is full electricity or was full electricity. Who started stealing the electricity? Who removed the water pipes and the sanitation pipes to make rockets? It wasn't the Israelis. The food, the calorific intake that Israel is allowing every day. First of all, let's talk about why is it calorie restricted. It is calorie restricted. Do you remember about last month, there was a chap going around saying, मैं Glucon D, नहीं, Parle G, some biscuit खरीदता था हिंदुस्तान से, और उसके लिए एक पैलेट के लिए मेरे को 6,000 रुपए देना पड़ रहा है. Why? Because Hamas takes it and they black market it. इधर करोगे तो जेल जाओगे, उधर करोगे तो फ्रीडम फाइटर का दर्जा मिलेगा तुमको. भाई कौन जो खुद अपने लोगों से ऐसे मनी एक्सटॉर्ट करता है एट अ टाइम ऑफ वॉर, व्हाट डू यू कॉल समबडी लाइक दैट? They are getting their full calorific intake. We have been there, we have seen the trucks go in. And guess who doesn't distribute it? It is not only Hamas. Hamas wants to capture what goes in. The UN has less than 1/3 of the trucks required to actually ship what is shipped in there all the way into Gaza. Israel then offered, please take those trucks inside, we will import those trucks for you, Volvo trucks or MAN trucks or whatever. The Germans offered free trucks. The UN said no. And obviously Al Jazeera, you will never hear about it. BBC, you will never hear about it because BBC is basically Pakistan Broadcasting Service. Have you been to the BBC office in London? You should. You won't see a single white man out there. You'll be like, अरे ये मैं क्या लाहौर आ गया हूँ या लंदन आ गया हूँ? You go to Turkish. I have actually been to the TRT station in Istanbul. It is amazing because most of them are Kashmiris out there. Do you know that? It is actually Kashmir Broadcasting Service. And Al Jazeera, of course, is Al Qaeda Broadcasting Service. तो वो छोड़ दो. So you have this very standard pattern. Now tell me something. You have seen their coverage on India, the Guardian, BBC, New York Times, Al Jazeera on India. How many of you actually believe all their coverage on India? Put your hands up. Nobody believes their coverage on India. Then why do you believe their coverage on Israel? It is the same lobby running the same thing. We have been there. We have seen. I can show you satellite imagery of all the trucks with all the food, refrigerated trucks, all held up there at the border because the UN refuses to distribute it. And when it happens, Hamas comes and captures it and then black markets it because even in their time of misery, तुम्हारा घर टूटा होगा, तुम्हारे बच्चे मरे होंगे, but still, पहले तो तुम्हारा घर के नीचे हमने टनल बनाए, so Israel will have to bomb it. See, Israel tries to avoid killing people because it is bad publicity for them. You saw those images in the anti-Semitism program. They have always been accused of killing children. Christian martyr child in Christian countries, Muslim martyr child in Muslim countries. This is the accusation against them. But Hamas has to reinforce that imagery. ये तो बच्चे मारते हैं, कुछ भी कर सकते हैं. You know, in Kashmir, they used to be very scared of the Naga regiment out there. You know why? क्योंकि वो कुत्ते खाते हैं, तो हमको क्या कर देंगे? Same kind of stereotypes, negative stereotypes. So don't fall for it. Keep digging, keep digging, keep digging. Go see satellite imagery. Ask for proof. They'll show you starving kids. Tell me something, if there's a famine happening, how are you only seeing 1 or 2 starving kids, which is usually the CT, swollen, it's a distinct disease. It is not malnutrition, surprisingly. It is not. That is the amazing thing. You will equally find Gaza influencers putting up images of them having whole parties, Jaj ba laham, chicken stuffed with mutton. आपने कभी खाया है? मैंने खाया है उधर. जाज बा लहम, कुल्फी फलूदा, इधर से बेहतर कुल्फी फलूदा मिलेगा. ज्यादा गाढ़ा खोया होगा उसमें, रबड़ी भी ज्यादा गाढ़ा होगा, क्रीम भी ज्यादा हायर फैट क्रीम होगा. वही खा खा के मैं ऐसे बन गया हूं. Generally, if you are fairly middle classish in Gaza, say assume you can buy a Kia Seltos. If you are in Kia Seltos purchasing range, you will be horizontally more expensive than me in Gaza. So I would suggest try to go there. You can even go to the border and look across the border, and you can see for yourself who's stopping it.
I think he has said a very important point, like if I may just add one line to it. Gaza, if you look at it, it is in such an area wherein other people are not allowed. Nobody is allowed in Gaza. It is only Hamas. So any news that you get from Gaza is Hamas sponsored. It has to be it is coming from Hamas. So all these Guardian and BBC and everything that he was talking about, all the news is coming from Hamas. It is not from anywhere, because nobody is allowed. Even Israelis are not allowed.
Yeah, you see, actually what happened, if you remember, that Al-Qaeda reporter who was, and there was an uproar in the world about, how journalists of Al-Qaeda, so it is actually Al-Qaeda, same thing. Al Jazeera were killed, but they were active workers of Hamas. You see, that is one point that was not mentioned anywhere. All right, so it was utter propaganda. Now, Sandeep, I want to come to you.
I'll just add one more thing. Of course, is next. In continuation to what Manjari said, is that these, whenever you quote, let's say the BBC or any of these discredited organizations, according to the Gaza Ministry of Health, there is no Hamas. It is Hamas. It is not Hamas controlled. It is Hamas. There is no, look, when I spent about 5 days in Gaza, the ambulances, the entire medical system, everything is Hamas run. And I'll tell you, before I just hand it over to Sandeep, I had a chat with the spokesperson of the Hamas at that time. And he had a very interesting conversation with me. It was very open, of course, until he saw the camera and then he controlled himself. I was a journalist in those days, 15, 17 years ago. I said that you guys bomb the same power station which supplies electricity to you. It's inside Israel. After 17 years of, how many years? Almost 20 years of Hamas rule, they still don't have their own power generation system. They have not bothered to, because they need the stuff to build rockets and to attack Israel. So I said, what is the point of your sending rockets into the water salination, the desalination plant, the power plants, etc.? Aren't you like damaging? They say, it doesn't matter, it's Israeli, we will attack it. This is the logic. So, and the person I was with a officially an ABC, American Broadcasting Corporation, stringer. And every few minutes, what he didn't know is that I understood a little bit of Arabic. Every few minutes while he was with me, this particular visit was in 2010, he would pick up the phone and he would speak in language which was very clear that he was speaking to somebody in the Hamas headquarters. Now, many of these hostages who were released, Israeli and non-Israeli as well, let's not forget them, who were released in the last couple of years over the period of time, there are so many of them who have said they were kidnapped and kept hostage in the homes and families of journalists and UN workers. Who used to get, they could see it. Person would get up in the morning, put on a UN uniform, go and do whatever the UN was supposed to be doing officially, and they had these hostages in their homes. There is a statement I will re-quote. It's been said many times, and which is true. In Second World War in Germany, there were many Germans who saved the lives of Jews. Many. It's documented. I'm not saying this just on now. It's documented, including diplomats, including SS generals, officers. Not one Gazan so-called civilian saved the life or tried to help a single hostage. When the one odd case where a hostage would somehow manage to run away, escape, he or she was captured by a Gazan civilian and handed back to Hamas. Just think about that.
Yeah, Sandeep, you have been speaking about how 2023, the Hamas attack, I mean, it's a redrawing of the map of the Middle East,
Yeah.
1967. If you can just tell our audience a little bit about
absolutely.
what you think.
You know, before I answer that question, Joyita, I want to ask all of you, because you've been listening to stuff about West Asia and Israel for a couple of hours now. Do you have any idea how big the state of Israel is? For instance, if Israel were an Indian state, which Indian state would Israel be? Any guesses?
In terms of size.
In terms of size, square kilometers. Anyone? Yep.
Maybe the size of Goa?
No, it's smaller than the size of Manipur, right? That's how big Israel is. Manipur is about 22,000 square kilometers. Israel is 21,000 square kilometers. It's smaller than Manipur. That is how small the state of Israel is. And it's surrounded by enemies on all sides. It is the most remarkable geopolitical act of survival possibly since 1947. There is no other state in the history of the last 100 years almost which has survived against these kind of odds. And I just want to give you that anecdote. Joyita, you were with me in that bunker when the missile came. And you know, this is a story of survival of what Israelis have to go through. They've been doing that for decades. Now it so happens that this was the 25th of September, 2024. I remember the date because it was the day after my birthday. And we just had a small party there, all of us. So Manjari is the only person who was not there with us. I'm sure we will visit at some point together. But we had this party, and the following morning we said, we were in this hotel by the seaside, and we said, let's go for a swim. And there were 3 of us who had made a swim program. And in the morning I heard a siren. So I stepped out in my swimming trunks, and I saw a lady there. She was running barefoot, and she was frantic. So I said, so my first reaction was, ma'am, is everything okay? She said, what do you mean? Haven't you heard the siren? You have to go to a safe shelter. So I said, oh, you mean that was a siren? I wasn't used to it, I come from a land of peace, which has been at peace for, 80 years, 90 years. We have never seen the kind of warfare. We tend to think that we have fought several wars, but they've all been border affairs, right? You have not seen the kind of conflict that Israel has seen. And they live with it on a daily basis. So my next question to her was, ma'am, are you an Israeli civilian? She said, yes, you're combat trained, I'll follow you. So we went into this shelter, and Joyita was already there. She was checking her phone, and she had her charger there. So we stood there for some time till the alerts subsided. And then I remember hearing the thumps, that was the interceptors taking out that missile. It was the only ballistic missile that Hezbollah had fired at Israel. And it so happened that our hotel was located very close to Mossad headquarters. And they were aiming for Mossad headquarters, and they missed. And of course, they were taken out by the interceptors. That missile was taken out by the interceptors. So my advice to any of you who's visiting Israel, don't stay near the Mossad headquarters, right? It was, what was the name of the hotel? The Carlton, yeah. The Carlton by the beach. And after this subsided, we of course went, and we said, look, we are not going to let, what is that Hezbollah fellow's name? We are not going to let Nasrallah disrupt our swim. So we went, we swam, and we came back, and of course I got a call. I was with the TV9 group at that point, and they said, we want a live from you because we hear there's been a missile attack. So I said, okay, sure. We set up the the camera, and I took my microphone. I did this journalist in conflict zone act, and I said, you know, we've just had a Hezbollah missile attack, and this, that, and you know, everything's fine. It's been this, things are back to normal, and you know. So I immediately got a call from the PCR saying, sir, there's a problem. I said, what? Technical? No technical issue, sir. ये आपके frame में है ना, there are a lot of Israeli civilians behind. They're doing yoga and they're cycling and they're jogging. So I said, bhai, this is Israel, yeah. this is a daily attack kind of thing. This is what they live with, right? This is life on the edge. And they can't, you know, hold their lives hostage to Hezbollah missile attacks or something like that. Life goes on as usual. And all of them are combat trained, right? So you're very safe in the hands of an Israeli civilian, I can tell you that. They're all combat trained and they're superb. They're the best people on earth, probably. So now coming to your question, Joyita. Now what happened is, how many of you have heard of a 23-year-old guy called Gavrilo Princip? History students, anyone? Oh, okay. Gavrilo Princip. Ah, black shirt. Is there someone in the black shirt?
Why are you looking back?
No. Okay. So Gavrilo Princip is the guy, a 23-year-old Bosnian Serb, who took a pistol and shot Archduke Franz Ferdinand in 1914 in Sarajevo. And that shot and that death of Archduke Franz Ferdinand triggered off the First World War, which we know killed 40 million people. The Second World War killed 80 million people, which was the cause of the First World War. And what we saw from the First and the Second World War was like empires collapse, right? The First World War, you had these massive empires. The Ottoman Empire, 500 years, bang, gone. Austro-Hungarian Empire, hundreds of years, bang, gone. Every empire shook because of those two wars, right? Now, I bring you to the 7th of October 2023. That morning, you could, if you were driving a motor car and you started in Lebanon, right? And you wanted to drive non-stop to the Iranian border with Pakistan, that's on the Arabian Sea. You could drive that 2,700 kilometer distance. As the crow flies, the actual driving distance would be longer. You could drive that distance without crossing a single Sunni Arab controlled territory. Because that is the Shia axis of influence that Iran has built up slowly over 20 years, right? And mainly because of this guy called Qasem Soleimani, who Trump had ordered assassinated a couple of years back. That was the Shia axis of influence that Iran had built a network of proxies all around Israel, all meant to attack Israel, bait Israel. And on the 7th of October, what happened is, Yahya Sinwar, he's not 23, he's 60 years old, he's the head of Hamas, he's a complete lunatic. Was, yes. May he rest in hell. The attack that he ordered on the Israeli civilians, I mean, all of us have seen that, the kind of brutality. I mean, General Katoch has spoken about it, but I can tell you it is 10 times worse than what General Katoch has described. The kind of horrific torture, rape, abduction that they've carried out on Israeli civilians, it's unimaginable. Which is why when I was watching all these attacks on lives, literally on social media, on my social media feed, I knew the Israeli response would be of a kind that we have not seen before, right? And that is what is playing out. Israel has waged this war of attrition, which Iran activated its proxies to carry out, right? Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis, Kataib Hezbollah in Iraq, all of this, they all launched their attacks on Israel. And what we are seeing now, we are nearly 2 years down from that horrific attack of the 7th of October. The entire map of the Middle East is changing itself. It's not exactly the First World War, but it's almost like that. It is the most consequential event in West Asia in possibly since the 1967 Six-Day War, when Israel literally rewrote the rules of war fighting. They took on four neighbors simultaneously. Look, this has never happened in the 20th century warfare, where one country has fought four other countries, right? They fought and defeated the armies of Jordan, Syria, Egypt, and was Lebanon the fourth?
Lebanon was not really the fourth, but it was
Three.
armies which came in from Iraq and to help.
Iraq and all. So it was literally the entire Arab thing, but they fought a three-front war literally on all three sides. No, the Houthis were not on. They defeated all these armies. They redrew the map of the Middle East. The territory of Israel expanded 3 times to what it is today. They captured the Sinai. They got East Jerusalem, Gaza, all of that, West Bank. So Israel achieved a military victory of the kind that nobody had expected them to carry out. So, which is how a lot of our understanding of Israeli tactics and all that starts from 1967, literally goes up to 73. Of course, 73 were taken by surprise. But then what you're seeing today is that the entire geography of the region is changing. Now look at it. The house of Assad, which has been standing since 1971, has collapsed, right? And Syria, as General Katoch mentioned, is today, it is not the Arab Republic of Syria that we once thought, the Syrian Democratic Republic that we once thought it was. It is a patchwork quilt of different ethnicities. It is Druze control, it is, Alawite control, it's Sunni Arab control. The entire map of West Asia has changed. You have Israel, which has created a 400-kilometer buffer zone all along Syria. They've captured all that, the Golan Heights and all of that. Now they're in a commanding position, and they have waged a war. And Iran is in a corner right now. Its axis of influence is shattered. The only ones who are left standing literally are the Houthis, who keep popping up with those attacks every now and then. Hamas is headless. Hezbollah has been routed. Kataib Hezbollah is lying low. Iran, they came close to facing regime change. They were under such pressure from Iran and Israel and the United States. They've done all of this, and this is no great surprise. They've done it before, they've done it again, but the map of the Middle East today, as we see, Joyita, is changed, and I think it will continue to change, because while Israel continues its action against the aggressive neighbors that it has and these proxies, it also it has an ally in President Trump, because I think he is one of the most pro-Israel presidents of the United States in a long time. We have our issues with Trump, but that's a separate story. But you're seeing a combination of Israel's offensive against these proxies. If you look at the right wing, they're talking about something like a greater Israel, which is an Israel whose influence expands beyond its geographical territories and now is meeting with Trump's plans for remaking West Asia in a way that it will never create problems again. He's talking about redeveloping Gaza, taking over the territory and all that. So, but I'm saying that what we are seeing right now in West Asia is a one-of-a-kind situation. We've seen wars since 67. There have been wars in 2073, in 2006. But this is one war that is going to change the West Asia in a way that is previously unimaginable, at least not in the last half century or so. So it is a different West Asia. And the point of, we always say there is a new Middle East, this is a new Middle East. It's used very loosely. But I think that this is really the new Middle East. And it's a chance to change things to our better.
Yeah, Aman, we are going to take one more quick round of questions, and then maybe if anyone has any questions, they can talk. I mean, maybe another 10-15 minutes. Now, Manjari, you wanted to talk about Gandhi and the Jerusalem question, and also the significance of Jerusalem in Iranian Shia discourse. Can you quickly tell us what it is about?
Okay, so how many of you have heard this proverb, eye for an eye will make the whole world blind? Who said it? Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, and he said it in the context of Israel-Palestine or the Jerusalem question. So what he was doing is, because he had already become a world leader in 1930s or late 1930s, so he was asked about the independence of Israel, that Israel as a country is going to be independent, so what are your thoughts about it? And that's when he writes and he talks about how, the region of Palestine or Greater Palestine belongs to the Arabs. So he says that, like France is to French, England is to English, similarly, the land of Palestine has to be for the Arabs. And he said a lot of other things also. And then there was a very interesting conversation that broke out between a Jewish philosopher, Martin Buber. Martin Buber in 1939 writes to Gandhi, and he says that your understanding of the Jerusalem question and your understanding of the Palestinian issue is very narrow. You have not understood the Jerusalem question. You have not understood that we have had a long history of existence in the land of Israel, what it was to become eventually. And then he also says that your understanding of this Jerusalem question is based on your friends, two Jewish friends, which are like very popular, whom Mahatma Gandhi met in South Africa, Kallenbach and Pollock. And that's when he derived these ideas that land of Palestine belongs to the Arabs and Jewish people do not have any claim over it. And that is what Martin Buber was shattering for him. What he said was that your friends, your Jewish friends are not Jewish enough. They are not Zionist. They have not understood, and they are more Western. They are more Christian in thought process. So they do not understand, and I hope that you need to lecture yourself on what exactly is Jewish understanding of the Jerusalem. And that's when he started reading about the Jewish question, about the Jerusalem question and Israel's claim over Jerusalem. And then eventually, as we all know, that Gandhi had experiments with truth. By 1942, he was again interviewed by media personnel, and that's the time when he says that my understanding about Israel and the claim of the Jewish people over Israel is very limited, and therefore I am not going to speak anything about it. So what I'm trying to say here is that there are very few people who are going to correct themselves about their understanding of Israel or about their understanding of the Jewish. You want to say something? Okay. About the Jewish question. So this is what is very important for us to understand, that if you do not understand certain, and this is very important for the younger generations, that if you have made your ideas about certain things without educating yourself, try to educate yourself and try to understand the nuances of what is being said. So once you do that, you can correct yourself like Gandhi did. So what I'm trying to say here, Joita, was that he corrected himself. He did not understand the Jewish issue, but later on when he did not want to comment on what was the Jerusalem question all about was. When it comes to the second question about Iran and Iran and Israel, it's a very, or the Jewish question, or Jerusalem for that matter, it's a very interesting thing, because if you look at it, Iran is a Shia country. It's a Shia populated country, right? And they are the followers of 12 Shia Islam, which means that they believe that there was prophet, and then there was 12 imams who followed. So that is what their understanding is. And in their books of religion, apart from Quran, Bihar al-Sham, I think it's called as. So in that, it is written that Prophet Muhammad had told us that you do not need to go for over-zealous pilgrimage, which means that in Shia Islam, Makkah, Medina and Jerusalem is not important. It is not important, religiously speaking. They go to Karbala, they go to Kufa, which are the spots for the imams. They are not the spots for the prophet. So if that is the question, if that is what is the situation is, then why is Iran interested in Jerusalem? Then why does Hezbollah on those tunnels, I don't know if you all visited, in those tunnels it writes that, oh, Jerusalem, we are coming. Why are they coming to Jerusalem when it is not important for them? So what I'm trying to say here is that Iran and Jerusalem question is political. It is not religious. And remember what the DCM said was that we are not the target. It is the Sunni Arab world that is the target. So the idea is that the guardian of Makkah and Medina is who? Saudi Arabia. And Jerusalem's guardian by, by lineage of Prophet Muhammad is going to be either Saudi Arabia or Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan. So if you capture Jerusalem, if Iran captures Jerusalem, or if Iran has a control over Jerusalem, it can control the Sunni world. So that is the idea. Israel is secondary. It is not important in that sense.
Thank you, Manjari. Abhijit, the important question of the two-state solution that we keep hearing about, that, even India is talking about it, that there must be an Israel and there must be a Palestine, independent Palestine. Of course, the question of, you guys must have heard of something like from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. That's a very fashionable slogan on Western campuses. So what exactly is this two-state solution about, and is it feasible? And what is this slogan about?
So, to understand the two-state solution, first you need to understand why Zionism. You look before 1934, 35, 36. The biggest people who used to say, यार Hitler joke है यार, वो कुछ नहीं करने वाला है, बस बक करते रहता है, used to be European Jews. There was a group called the Bundists, B-U-N-D, which means Federation in German. Look them up. They were the majority of European Jews. They actually believed Hitler was just talking gobbledygook. He won't kill us. He won't discriminate against us. Nothing like that. They were also the largest number of people who died because they are the ones who stayed back in Germany after he came to power. And that is why when somebody threatens to kill them, they actually believe that person. Okay. Second, Sandeep talked about what Shinwar does to or did to Israelis. Do you know what he did to Arabs themselves? Anybody without proof, if you were accused of collaborating with Israel, he did not need proof. There was a gay Hamas commander, they actually exist by the way, called Muhammad Ishtawi. His fingernails were plucked out. Every joint in his hand was smashed by a hammer. And he was finally hammered to death over a 45-day period. Personally by Yahya Sinwar. His genitals were hammered. What great Arab hero is this? And this is one of just 8 Arabs that this man tortured and killed in Arab custody. What friend of Arabs is this man? And by the way, Yahya Sinwar, who saved him? Israel. He had a brain tumor. It was Israelis who operated on him, saved him and sent him back. Now, why is this important to the two-state solution? Israel has been saying two-state solution since 1945. In 1936, they were offered 48% of the land. It was literally an area around North Israel, no part of Jerusalem. They said, okay, humko yahi de do. Do you remember that whole story about Yudhishthira and the game? Mereko 5, give me 5 villages, I will be happy with that. And what did Duryodhana say? I will not even give you 5 villages. Same story here. They were given 48% of the land. The Arabs said no. In 48, they were given about what, 60-70% of the land? The Arabs said no. In 67, they captured almost more than 100% of the land today. It was obviously no. Now, the rest of them tell you the 67 borders are sacrosanct. Bhai, 1948 में sacrosanct नहीं था, 1956 में sacrosanct नहीं था, through the 70s, 60s वो sacrosanct नहीं था. Do you know even after they claimed the 67 border was sacrosanct, Jordan had annexed the West Bank. It was considered, in all Jordanian maps, like we say Kashmir is an integral part, you have to show Aksai Chin and everything. The Jordanians used to do the same thing. They gave up their claim only in the 1990s over the West Bank. Where was Palestine then? Now, when you say two-state solution, who is the biggest opposer? Now you will hear a propaganda line saying, oh, Netanyahu and all these right-wing ministers, they dream of Akhand Israel. They talk about Akhand Israel, yes. Okay, but understand the people who keep opposing the two-state solution has consistently been the Palestinian leadership. Even now, if you go back to the 67 borders, ask Hamas. Hamas controls one half of Palestine, which is Gaza. Are they willing to accept Israel in the 67 borders? No. They are still not willing to accept them. What about Fatah, Yasser Arafat's faction, now Mahmoud Abbas, who rules in the West Bank? Are you willing to accept the 67 borders? Yes, but. What is the but? The right of return. Okay, which is every Arab who lived in Israel has to return to Israel. Now, will any of you accept that every person who went off to Pakistan has a right to come back and live here now and reclaim his property? What is the meaning of partition? You are exchanging populations. हम अपना स्टेट भी बनाएंगे पर हमारे लोग जाके तुम्हारे इधर भी जाके घुसपैठ करेंगे. How is that? In 2000, Ehud Barak had the Camp David Accords with Yasser Arafat. Well, it wasn't an accord, they tried to negotiate. They were offered 97% of the land, West Bank plus Gaza, 3% in lieu, 3% of Israel proper in lieu of what they could not give because there were settlements out there. They were offered a road connection between Gaza and West Bank, and they were offered parts of Jerusalem, which they wanted, Al-Quds, okay? No, they didn't take it. Do you know why? Because they said another 3 million of us will come and live in Israel after it is separated. Now, you know, a modern nation state, if you read humanities theory, is not about the land, it is about the people. What country will give up 33% of its population to another country which you claim are worse than Nazis and genociding your people? You know, if they agree even now to a 1967 border without the right of return, they'll have their land tomorrow. And you know why? Look at Israel's history. When Israel made peace with Egypt, they gave back the entire Sinai. The Sinai is twice the size of Egypt today. That entire part was given back. Why was Gaza not given back? Because the Egyptians didn't want it back. They said, "तुम वहाँ रखो, हमको नहीं चाहिए, ये ना बहुत बदबू आता है इधर से, रखो तुम." You know, they literally said that. I don't know if you know that. They literally said, "Badbu aata hai. It stinks." That was what, I think it was El Shazli, I forget who the general was, he said, "It stinks, I don't want it back." In 2005, Ariel Sharon, who was considered the most right-wing hawk, executed a full pullout from Gaza. It was not under occupation at that time. खाना जा रहा था, but घी मक्खन जा रहा था, chicken जा रहा था, Jaj bin Laham, you know, mutton stuffed in chicken, like I like to tell you. जा रहा था, there was no restriction on it. कौन सा ऑक्यूपेशन था भाई? तो फिर क्यों रॉकेट थामने लगे उधर? और भाई अगर रॉकेट थामोगे तो क्या आके तुमको चुम्मा देंगे? रॉकेट के बदले चुम्मा? द सॉन्ग इज जुम्मा चुम्मा दे दे, जुम्मा रॉकेट दे दे कोई गाना नहीं है. Second, let's talk about, finally, sorry, last point, disproportionate. You know, disproportionate, let's get it very clear. Assume Joyita punches me. Proportionate, no, please don't show me how. If Joyita punches me, proportionate is not that I get a right to punch her back. Proportionate is to my war aims. इसने युद्ध का ऐलान किया है. Now I have decided that I am going to chop off her hair and make her face black and blue. What is proportionate to it? I will punch her as many times as it takes to get her face black and blue, and then I will take scissors and chop off her hair. That is proportionate. It is proportionate to war aim. It is not proportionate to तूने मेरे को मुक्का मारा, तूने एक रॉकेट मारा, मैं तेरे को एक रॉकेट मारूंगा. Okay, because then when Pakistan kills 26 people at Pahalgam, you should go kill 26 civilians out there. कोई war ऐसे चलता है क्या? It is proportionate to what we wanted to destroy out there. So even this question, proportionate is not reciprocity. Understand, Reciprocal is what they're trying to pass off as proportionality. There were 2,400 American sailors killed in Pearl Harbor attack by Japan. What did America do? They launched 2 nuclear bombs on Japan when they could. Do you want Israel to do that? Because technically that would be completely proportionate. They're not. Even though they have those bombs. They deny it, but they have those bombs.
Okay. Arjun, continuing with this narrative question, would you say that there is a strong similarity between what India is facing when it comes to the narrative warfare against India and against Israel? And also, well, it's going to be a little uncomfortable if I ask, is it also about similarities that you see in terms of the attacks against Jewish people?
There are many surveys done. It's an American organization, so within the United States. The Jewish population, despite what the Western media, the Guardian, the BBC, etc., and not the friendly media likes to portray, is that the Jews are controlling the world. The world's finances are controlled by the Jews. The world's politics are controlled by the Jews. That the American Congress, House of Representatives, Senate is all controlled by the Jews. You know what is the population? What is the American population? Say about 350 million? You know what is the Jewish population in the United States? Say about 6 million? Really? 6 million people controlling 350 million. And yet, look at their contributions. These are people who are actually about 0.2% of the world population, not even 1%. You know how many Nobel Prizes have been given over the world, over time, last 100 odd years? 950 approximately. You know how many Nobel Prizes Jews have won? Besides Israelis, global Jews? Over 250. Look it up.
600 if you count half.
Yeah, well. What have they done? Have you heard of, by the way, most of you have got, obviously, you're in college, you've got cell phones. WhatsApp was invented in Israel. The Intel chip that you use in your laptops, unless it's an Apple, was invented in Israel. The USB that you plug in and watch movies, etc., was invented in Israel. These are the kind of people that we have that we can learn from. Globally, everybody can learn. Over in the last few half an hour, 1 hour, whatever, during the day of today's proceedings, General Katoch himself has spoken about the resilience of these people. Sandeep has also mentioned it. I started at the beginning when I said that there were 18 million, they had been down to 18 million. They should have been much higher considering how many years they are in world history. Before the global population, before Second World War, was 18 million. After the Holocaust, where they lost officially 1/3, but there are speculations about almost half the Jewish population was wiped out in the Second World War. They're now coming up to 16 million, now, 80 years after the war. Now this question was asked by Joyita to Abhijit about the two-state solution. For the Jewish people now, the two-state solution sounds more like the final solution of the Nazis. This is not a solution. The whole concept was if Israel agrees and the world agrees and the world pressurizes Israel, and if Israel agrees, there's a Palestinian state that lives equally and in friendship as friendly neighbors next to Israel, everything will be sorted. It will be a solution for the region. Yeah, we tried that 20 years ago with Gaza. What happened? Do I need to repeat? Is this the kind of neighbors they want? So again, there is no solution. And let me tell you, I spent enough time in Israel, Abhijit does, others also do. Among the hostages and among the people who were slaughtered, I will not just call them murdered, in what is called the Gaza envelope, that is along the Jewish towns, villages, the farms, etc., along what is called the Gaza envelope, the borders which were attacked and murdered, majority of the people there were the ones who were helping the Gazans as much as they could within their limits. They would transport, they would go to Gaza, go to the border, pick them up in their own cars, bring them for medical treatment to Israeli hospitals, where they were treated free of cost. Free of cost. Abhijit mentioned about Yahya Sinwar. He was given free medical treatment for a brain cancer that he was cured. So, coming back to the last question of the last point about A, the two-state solution is no solution. It is no less than the Jewish final solution of the Nazis. And those Gazans, those Israelis, and I've spoken to many of them, would rather now, after what they have gone through, would rather see nothing between them and the sea and the Mediterranean Sea. They don't want to see the Gazans anymore. That is how it has changed. There is nobody, literally nobody in Israel today who is in favor of having a two-state solution or getting the Palestinians to have their own state or poor people. That's over. That thing is over. Anybody who's dreaming of having a two-state solution or having a Palestinian state next to them, next to Israel in proportion, next to them, friendly neighbor, that dream is over for the next 50 years at least.
And I think from this only stems that kind of misinformation and disinformation. And my last question, I know Aman is constantly sitting there and saying that he finished. Talk a little bit about the IMEC. Would you say the October 7th attack has put an end to the IMEC plan? In fact, I think it happened inside 1 month of IMEC being
Absolutely.
declared?
In fact, that morning of the 7th of October 2023, Joyita, when the attack happened, I mean, of course, I was horrified with what I was seeing on social media, the images that were coming out, and this entire participation of the Gazans in this orgy of violence, where civilians were actually...
Gaza civilians.
Gaza
Don't
civilians
think it was
were...
just Hamas that was...
Yeah, it wasn't... I
attacking.
couldn't tell who was Hamas and who was Gazan. They were all participating in this. I said, that this is going to impact on IMEC. Now, just a few days prior, as one of the panelists had mentioned in the previous session, that India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor was announced here in New Delhi during the G20 summit. It was one of the biggest takeaways, possibly one of the biggest takeaways of any geopolitical event in India. It was that significant. And when this happened, when these attacks happened, I immediately knew what was going to happen. It was just QED. It was that Israel would now retaliate for this violence, and there would be a war in West Asia, and IMEC would go into the cold storage. And unfortunately, that has actually happened. Now, what is IMEC? It's basically an economic corridor using shipping lanes, using railway lines, a land and sea corridor going from Gujarat all the way through West Asia, through the Middle East first, through the UAE, Saudi Arabia, going into Israel, and then from there on to Europe. It would shorten the normal shipping route that we had to take via the Red Sea or via the Cape of Good Hope literally by 50%. That would mean faster transport of goods and services through this corridor into Europe. So that was our big bet for the future. This was very forward-looking, a very enlightened proposal that came from India. It's one of those great things that came out of here. It was a vision, and it was actually India's vision to counter China's Belt and Road Initiative. Now, what has happened because of this war in Gaza, because of Hamas's attack, is that corridor has unfortunately gone into cold storage. One of the speakers in the previous sessions mentioned that as well. And I think once the violence halts, once peace and normalcy returns in Israel, there is an end to fighting. I think the one big thing that we can as Indians see from this, of course, is the reconstruction of the war damage that Israel has seen in the last couple of years, but also the restoration of this entire IMEC corridor. And I think, very quickly, Joyita, before I wrap, is that we should kind of continue building the India-West Asia corridor of IMEC, that is from India to Saudi Arabia, UAE, and all of that, and wait for that final leg to be completed. That will, of course, is contingent upon the fighting ending. But I think the I2U2 is also a very important IMEC is actually flows out of I2, U2 as well. And for that, of course, we need the Americans on board. That's a bigger story, and that I think is something that we'll be seeing in the months ahead, years, Joyita. Thanks.
Yeah, I just wanted one statement. One last statement. Just last statement. This is just what what we were speaking about independent news media, etc. There is just a report that has just come in. According to the Gaza Ministry of Health, an Israeli airstrike has killed 15 inside Gaza. Any independent source? None whatsoever.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.